Thank you.
Yes, we seem to have one chair, but that's okay.
What?
Yeah, maybe that would be good. Sure.
Let's get a couple up here because this is a weird.
Yeah, that is kind of a weird. Looks like something you if you were the dentist, that's what you'd sit in.
Yeah. Well, like at an open mic coffee house, you know.
Thank you. That was very nice. No, exactly. I don't know if you'll like that.
So what's going on? Do we have like a? How does this work? Okay, so we just take our own questions. Great. All right, hey guys. Hope you guys are enjoying your day. Anyone have questions? Yeah? Yes.
Oh yeah.
Tell you guys what's gonna happen on Heroes. Well, I brought all the scripts. No. No, you crazy. I mean, what I could tell you is that well, we have 4 episodes left on Volume 3, which is called Villains, and it's going to be great because the last 3 episodes or so really sort of drew a clear line between, you know, who's on which side, and now we have sort of our group versus the Arthur Petrelli group and his group of villains. So yeah, it's going to be a good showdown, and I think you guys will really enjoy it. You guys seem really far away, by the way.
Move forward if you want
It's
to.
a big space, and I don't know. Come closer.
I have a question for you, James.
Okay.
Okay. So, do you find with your friends that they avoid you because they don't want you to leak anything that's going to happen? Because I know for Eric,
In terms of the show.
yeah, a lot of people won't speak to him anymore because they're so afraid. Even if he says, I'm going to the set of Heroes, they don't want to know that he's back. So are you finding your friends don't want to know?
Or just avoid like the topic of the show.
Yes.
I don't know. You know, when I'm hanging out with my friends, I think show is probably one of the last topics we're talking about, just because, you know, for me, it's work. It's I mean, it's a job that I love, but it's also, you know, it's like when you go home from work, you're not constantly talking about work. You know, sometimes you bring work with you, but for the most part, you're sort of, you know, talking about life in general. So. I say sometimes I discuss it where they'll, you know, I got a lot of friends who watch it as fans and they love sort of dissecting it on their own and their own theories and whatnot. So, you know, a lot of times they don't want to know or they don't want to be spoiled of, you know, what's ahead. So, yeah.
Yeah. What else, you guys? There's a few. Go ahead. Go for it.
I'm going to let you be the official
Oh, really? Okay, well, we're going to get to everybody, obviously. So you first.
question seeker.
With-
Are you talking about because we jump around in time, how do we keep track of what's happening at the moment or in terms of? Mm-hmm. Right. So how do we like play the different moments in different timelines and whatnot? Well, you know, it's funny too because, you know, we read the scripts ahead of time and sometimes we shoot out of order, you know. So our show very commonly shoots 2 episodes at a time, sometimes 3. And I've had a week where I had to shoot 4 different scenes from 4 different episodes and working with 4 different directors because we rotate directors each episode. So, I mean, you know, if that's not confusing, you know, you got to really come prepared. So, but you want to have a really good idea of your own character's journey, I think, and I think that's why, even though we are aware of what's happening with everyone else's storyline, you really want to sort of focus on, you know, the life of the character that you're playing, and and whatnot. And in terms of being in the future or being in the past, I think just me personally as an actor, I think it's just all about what is believable and real at the present time. So I don't really try to overplay the fact that it's 5 years from now, so I need to be a complete different person. I think in television and movies, wardrobe and makeup and the setting tries to take care of a lot of that. Now, obviously, you want to implement the changes in the character that you understand as real as you can. But sometimes the actors fall into the danger of overplaying. Especially we as actors, we have this desire of like wanting to create all this different personalities. So, it's 5 years and we are, it's something that we're completely, but if you do that and sort of lose the believability, then you sort of lost the audience. So I think that's what's important.
If I can add to that, I know that for Eric, he was excited because coming back for the villains segment, he could do different things with his hair. And for him it was all like, woohoo, it's a different era, so I get to have different hair. and that was about it. I think that this cast has done a great job. I know I talked to Hayden about it. When it comes to the young members of the cast, like these guys, where it would be almost like an elementary school play if suddenly they were playing too mature or too young. You can't go real goofy and suddenly be playing a baby or suddenly be playing your impression of an older person, because at that age, 5 years is significant. 12 to 17 is huge, 17 to 22 is a really big jump. And so it is really important for them to kind of stay kind of with their character. I think the one thing that you guys exemplify really well is the different levels of comfort with their powers, because that's significant, because for some of them, the powers were really new, and now they're really used to them, or they don't want them at all anymore. So, that's interesting. But that show is unique in terms of, like you said, doing four different episodes in 1 week. I mean, it's so, I don't know how makeup keeps it straight. I don't know how the ADs keep it straight.
Yeah, and
wow.
we have 2 full units going at almost at the same time. So, it's like filming 2 TV shows.
Yeah.
At once.
Wild. Some great people in the industry, great directors even, but great assistant directors, line producers have actually, no offense, turned down Heroes, as popular as it is, because they just hear that it's way too challenging that way, keeping straight. I'm amazed at how organized it is. It's really incredible.
Yeah, me too.
Yep.
Yeah.
When in the episode, it was a few episodes back when Hero stabs Ando in the bar. You guys are trying to pick up.
Right.
How did they present that to you? Was it, they give you the script and then you find out, oh my God, I get killed? Did they just kind of leave you hanging with that for a little while, or did they tell you it's just
So Red's asking about the episode where Hero stabs Ando at the end of the episode, and what was my reaction? Well, I wasn't worried at all because I knew that wasn't the end. Usually, if a character does die on our show, you sort of get a phone call from Tim Kring, who's the creator. If you're one of the major characters, and just kind of sort of giving you the news. But I know for me, I knew there was an explanation. I just didn't know what exactly. And when the next script came, and it was a whole magic shop and the whole blood package, I just thought that was really fun. It was a fun way to sort of, play that. And also, I kind of, even though a lot of people thought, some people thought, wait a minute, that couldn't have possibly happened, or like, oh my God, what just happened, kind of thing. I think it was a good way to sort of mess with people's head a little bit. It definitely sort of, you had a reaction to it, and it got people talking about it, for several days.
Right. And also, we always like to say there's dead and there's heroes dead. So you never know. Like with Eric, since he was a guest, he's not a regular on the show. He didn't know, and Tim didn't call. And suddenly he was dead. And I thought, oh, this is going to be a stressful day on set. Instead, he and Greg Grunberg and Jack were especially giggly that day. They were laughing and playing all kinds of practical jokes. And, we had a sense, no one told us he was going to come back, but we just had a sense that there would be that call. Because they're always tying up and retying up the story. And then, again, what is dead? It's all relative. And heroes, my gosh. So here we go.
So many of the characters have come back just due to the flashbacks of the show and for various reasons. So even though they may have gotten killed in terms of the plot line, I think many of the actors do get to return, for different ways.
Which is really great. It's great. Did you have a question?
I DVR the episode every week because my favorite part is when you and Carol are going at it in Japanese, and it's like, I can't, you guys are talking.
It's like rapid fire.
So I have to pause it and read it because I can't, it just flashes so fast. I have to pause it and read it so that I make sure I don't miss it. But I just think it's cute, and it's like, okay, to me, there's a sense of still having a sense of naivete, even though you're a hero, you're still kind of the both of you are still kind of naive, but you're still willing to do whatever.
Yeah, I think we're sort of we're one of the few lighthearted side of the show. It already has a lot of drama and suspense and mystery I think to keep things interesting, you sort of have to relax from time to time and just lighten up and laugh. And I think that's where they like to use us. And I think part of the fun with the Japanese storyline is that it does move really fast, and you sort of have to rewind and what did they just say and whatnot. But it does keep you on your toes a little bit. And I do love how they move the subtitles too. Just kind of it's almost like a comic book, and there's the visual element to it. So, yeah, they do keep things fun with us. Yes. Do I speak Japanese? I'm still learning. So when the show started, my level was pretty basic. I took a semester of it in college, and then I got a coach. Where the show got a coach for me when we shot the pilot and we started filming the show. So each season I feel like I've gotten better, but it's still work in progress. And I think it'll always be a work in progress. But my coach keeps me pretty straight, and I have a group of friends who are very honest critics, and I think I've improved. Yeah, but it's still a lot of work. Yeah, that's his native language, so I don't think he really needs the coach. The coach is really, for me, we talk almost every day. So.
Was that the same coach who trained Jack Coleman to that day that he had to speak? He was so scared. Do you know how terrified he was? Oh my God.
Yeah, Jack, HRG had to say a line or two, and I think a few different languages now in Japanese and I think Russian one time.
Yeah.
And he might have had something in French too with the Haitian. I don't know.
Right.
But yeah, I know Jax told me Japanese was the most stressful by far.
Yeah, he said he couldn't sleep the night. He was just obsessed. He was just so sure he was going to blow that Japanese, and you could see him breathing hard and he'd get through it really great. He did fine, but he was pretty scared. Yeah. That was really.
It's not an easy language, It takes tons of work. But at the same time, I think that's one of the joys of being an actor, when you get to kind of acquire new skills and get to tackle new challenges. That's part of the fun.
Yeah, I think so too. But it is work. My son wanted to learn Japanese very badly as a child, and he got himself a cassette. And I didn't know this, but every night he was sleeping listening to Japanese, thinking he'd wake up speaking. And he was very frustrated. And when we started on the show, I said, they didn't learn the Japanese with that tape at night, by the way. Right. They're working really hard, except for Masi. But
it's like falling asleep with the book on your head, thinking it would just kind of absorb into the brain.
Yeah, it doesn't happen. Did you have a question?
I know she did, yeah.
Yeah.
Does Ando wish he had some powers? Well, if you saw the first episode of this season, there was a glimpse into the future where we saw a future Ando with an ability, and he shot these red lightning bolts and zapped Hero. So I think that was a fun sort of little glimpse into an alternate, reality or future that we're trying to prevent. But I don't know. I've been very. It's always been fun just playing sort of the one of the few mortals on this show. But I think things are changing, and I think in the next few episodes you see how Ando's character is gonna sort of evolve and the evolution of that power and where that comes from. So. Yes. The very first episode? Yeah, well, I just thought it was, I thought it was really cool how, again, it was a glimpse into the future, and they've played with this element in the show where, we get a vision of the future, and obviously it sort of sets off this journey to try to prevent what's happening. But, it's always kind of fun to see a character you're playing in a very different light, And I think in first season they did that with Hero, and this time, they showed a different version of Ando. And I think the point of that scene was that you're not supposed to exactly figure out what exactly happened. You don't know if there was a conflict, who betrayed who, or were they on opposite sides and whatnot. And that's really for you to kind of, think about and interpret. But these guys are buddies, and I think, and hopefully, it's a future that hopefully we will, try to prevent. But it was fun though, It's fun to zap him. Yes. Question is, am I also a fan of the show? Yeah, and I was right from when I read the pilot script. I knew that there's something different about the show. It didn't read like a TV show. It read more like a movie, and people are flying, walking through walls, and my first question is, how are they going to film this? And if they pull it off right, I think it could be something special, and luckily they did. So, yeah, it's a show that I watch, even if I wasn't on it. I think it just adds a lot of different elements, that people can enjoy, not just the sci-fi and the comic book element, but ultimately it's about relationships, And I think when they bring it back to the characters and about their interpersonal relationships, the show gets that much more interesting. So I don't know if you had what you think about that.
Yeah, I really get that a lot of people on the show, which is very unusual for shows, are people who would be the audience for the show otherwise, and they have respect for the process. And there's also a chemistry between the writers and the actors. It's really collaborative. I mean, everybody has their skill, their ability, but it's really collaborative. Also, the chemistry with you and Masi is incredible. It's really fun, and I think it's really inspiring for people. I think that, young guys and their friendships and relationships with each other, I truly think it's probably affected people and made them sort of better friends. There's something about that that's really great, and a feeling of if your heart is in the right place, you can do anything kind of thing. Yeah. And I think that's great. When Eric came to the show, he was not familiar with it, and we did a real crash course. Luckily, Keaton, my son, was an aficionado and could explain it. I watched Eric not understand a word Keaton was saying, though. But he looked on, thank God you can watch NBC.com and just watch online. And he really tried. And then he arrived at the conclusion of kind of what you said. He said, just approach it like any other role. It's relationships. It's people and situations and relationships. And just, far out things happen. Like, we have some photos of Hayden and her double in the burned up clothes. And, that is so rich. Just it's such a unique show. It's such an original. And yet, it boils down to the same kind of thing. There's moms and dads and people who care. And there's, I would imagine, even in terms of the storyline with Hayden and her parents, that there's so many adoptive families out there, and it must have a huge effect on them, because here's the thing of this unexpected love and bond between parents. I mean, that's what it really is, and then you just add all that other stuff,
Yeah. Yeah, these families, definitely not perfect.
Yeah.
but they're interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, they are. Yes.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
What did you think when you found out what your husband and daughter could really do?
Oh, now, wait a second. I'm not on Heroes. Do you know that?
You look like the mother.
Well, she's a really good friend of mine, which is really funny, and people have said that for years.
Ashley Crow?
Yes, because Ashley played Eric's girlfriend on a show I produced. I cast her, and it was called Dark Angel, sorry, and it was the original Dark Angel, shot in New Orleans, and I cast her, and he said, it's so funny that you cast her because she reminds me of you. And they were very comfortable together and stuff. So I can't answer for her, but she is brilliant. She would have a great answer for you. Do you know how she feels about that?
Oh, you mean
How she felt when she found out.
how Sandra felt when she found out about Claire and HRG?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I can't answer for it, but of course, again, there's that whole element of the characters on the show are very flawed. Yeah, there's something honorable and likable about them, and we root for them, but they're relatable because of, their mistakes as well as their achievements. You know what I mean? The choices they make sometimes are wrong, and sometimes they pay off. So, I think that's part of what makes the show interesting.
Right, and their motivations are often really good. I mean, they have to make Sophie's choice all the time. They're protecting something that matters, but at a high cost. That's kind of how I see it with HRG, with Eric's character, with everybody's character, really. And it challenges you, because we're in that situation every day in our lives, really. Basically, it's like, do you tell a friend the truth about something that might hurt them, but on the other hand, it's, all those kind of things magnified. Heroes is just like a really big, intense version of that.
Yeah, because to me, HRG, I never know what sides really are.
Yeah, I know. And he started off where he kind of liked him, right? And he kind of got more complex.
I saw that hand. Thanks.
International.
Could you talk a little about your experience of being part of that? Because it's really, I mean, most shows are just American. It's kind of cool that they carry
Yeah,
it around the world.
the international vibe or the look of the show. Even this season alone, and just with our characters, we went from Japan to Paris and to Africa and to a movie house in Germany. So, one, it keeps it fun. I know it keeps the location guys on their toes, because I mean, can you imagine? We shoot the show in Southern California, right around LA, and being able to find 7 different countries and like 5 different cities for a couple episodes, that's insane. And they do it, they pull it off all the time. And every time I go to the set, I was recently, we were on a set and it was built in as a bakery in India. And the very next day, and we shot like late into the night, the very next day I showed up to work and it was a noodle house in Tokyo. And I was like, wait, it's the same space. When did you guys do this? Who came? You know what I mean? And it just amazed me, and it was flawless. And so I think sometimes the production value of the show goes unnoticed, or we sort of take it for granted and that's part of the job, to make it unnoticeable so that it doesn't take away from what's happening, that it just all kind of seamlessly blend in. But they do an amazing job, so that's one. But I think it's cool to be part of a unique show where we have a show really represent people who look like the people of the world, and I think that's part of the reason why it's been successful globally as well. And not only is it successful here, but people all over Europe and Asia and Australia and Africa are seeing this show in South America. So I think that's great.
Yeah, that was a very important thing, because the way that films, for instance, these days are made is that you cast them first, and there's all these organizations and computers that determine an actor's international value. And I know that it was a huge boost for Eric when Heroes went to the UK, went to England. We got all kinds of calls. It was a very, very big deal. The show unveiled there, just tremendous for all these kids. It's going to make a big difference for their film careers, because that means that now they have a whole other audience that otherwise it would have, from television, American television, you never got that audience. They never saw our stuff. you know, it would be thought of as being just too indigenous to here. Theirs was too indigenous to there, and we were all separated. But there's a big bridge that's been built, and it's going to really be something. Yeah. I know, but this show, it absolutely doesn't, it's not language specific because it's our fantasy, it's our biggest fantasies and our worst fears in terms of the abilities. You know, like if you ask, I don't know how you feel, but when anybody asks Eric, what ability would you want? He, of course, wants to be able to be invisible because he wants to spy. And I think that probably that has got to be just the most universal thing in the world. And then this show gives you a chance to kind of find out what it would be like if you had that, you know, if you were able to do that and all these other things. Just the thing to heal, the power to heal, I mean, all that, oh my gosh. So you don't need a language, you don't need to speak at all to get that message, right? What would be your favorite ability?
Well, if you live in LA, you know, being able to fly. I mean, that's, you know,
get over the
come
traffic.
on. That's not, you know.
Audiobooks
Absolutely.
in your car.
I love a complete random ability, like being able to play the banjo like really well.
Yeah.
Because how many people play the banjo?
Right, you're right.
And then I would just strategically just place it at a party. What's going on, guys? Oh, it's a banjo. And then just rock it out. Like, dude, what? When did you?
It's funny.
You know. Yes. Who's my favorite character and least favorite character on the show? Favorite character, Mr. Muggles. No, you know, I mean, there's several people I really like. This season, I've been really enjoying the two Petrelli parents, Arthur and Angela, and those guys together. I don't know what it is, but it's just so good. There's just there's just a savviness that veterans bring that you can only pick up through experience and age. I think, you know. And Christine and Robert, they're just, there's something interesting about them even when they're just kind of being. So I've been really loving that story this season. I don't know if I have a least favorite character, or if the characters hasn't worked, I think they got killed off. So the show kind of took care of itself, yeah.
Right, that's funny. Are you guys still doing the thing where on Fridays, was it Fridays or Mondays? On Fridays you'd watch Monday's episode
Yeah,
during lunch?
although it's been a while since I've been on a Friday, but what the show does is on a Friday on set, they'll have catering for everybody, for the entire people working on the show, and we'll be at a space like this, and then they'll project it on a giant wall of the upcoming episode, and it's really fun because it feels like you're watching a movie with like just a bunch of your friends and family, and if you get all the crew and production people and the actors of the show together on a given day, it's almost 100 people. So it's a nice way to just kind of be together and bond.
It is so great. I got to tell you, because Eric only has done a total of 7 episodes or something, and a couple of times he didn't shoot on a Friday. One Friday we went down just for lunch, just to do that. Even though the show's going to air on Monday, you're just going to wait a couple of days. That feeling, first of all, every time someone comes on the screen or does something special, everybody's just like, yay!
Yeah.
And also, there's the feeling of this cast and this crew being an audience to their own work. There really is. It's the effect works on them. They're not breaking it apart. They're not looking to see how their makeup looked or whatever. They're just totally into it. I've never seen that before. I've worked mostly in situation comedy, and I had a thing on my desk that said, comedy is dead serious, because there's nothing less jovial than the booth, the control booth, doing a comedy. No one's laughing. Everyone hates each other. It's just weird. And then this feeling with this cat, it's just unbelievable. Those Fridays, watching that show, it was such a great idea.
You're also getting to see what everybody worked on.
Yeah.
So you're sort of seeing what everybody chipped in to create, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And now it's like the final product, Oh yeah, all the time, because I mean, look how many different characters and storylines we have. So if me and Hero might be fine, filming on this location, and then we got the Petrelli family doing this, and so we're constant. So it's rare that we see each other. Sometimes I go weeks without seeing some of the other actors, and so when we do see each other, it's fun because it's like, God, that's where you've been, or it's where when you're watching the show, like, oh my God, that what I mean? That's what they're doing, and
It's also cool. There's an element here where, since it's a series, like if Eric does just a movie for a couple of weeks, somebody picks him up and takes him to work. But this is a series, so everybody takes themselves to work, and there's a website where they have codes for all the productions in LA now, and you have to punch in and type in all this stuff to find out where you're working the next day. Heroes is like a joke because there's like 17 different locations every day. And I always will drive. Eric is hopeless with the computer and with directions. So I drive him to work. And he was looking over my shoulder once. He's like, what? How do you not end up on the wrong set? It's like, oops, wrong unit. I'm not supposed to be here. It's just, they have it down to a science. It's pretty remarkable. It really is remarkable. And they have just, for the signs that show where they're shooting, they have just that burned out, the eclipse thing or whatever it is, as if anybody doesn't know that's Heroes shooting there. It's not really well.
Now they do.
Well, sorry. Well, we're not in LA, so I figure it's okay.
Person who hasn't asked it, that.
Heroes has been a little different every season from the first, second, and third. How do you feel about the story and like the cast in general? How the different seasons of the story, like how it's been a little different. Like how do they feel about like how it progressed or their seasons they like better?
Yeah, and I think that keeps the show interesting because I think that's why they call it volumes. We've had Genesis, which was 23 episodes, and I think we needed to do that to sort of establish some things. Obviously, Volume 2 was cut short because we had a strike, but I felt like it sort of we were able to sort of wrap the story around, even if we had to kind of speed some things up towards the end. And this volume, which is called Villains, I feel like it's sort of its own chapter, and it's going to wrap up in about 4 episodes by end of this season. Our next volume is called Fugitives, and we just started filming the first 3 episodes of that, and it's got a whole different feel to it this time. Almost like a vibe of a 24 where, if these heroes and villains have to be on the run, and what if even the government is not protecting them and not on their side, and how does it affect our lives? So I think it's cool. I think the concept of it is that you go into your basement and open up your old boxes of comic books and like, oh my God, I remember this. And then you read sort of a series. Okay, I'm done with this. And now you go into a different volume. You're opening up a different, a box. And like, holy cow, it's just, it's a different set of stories that really, these are characters that you have come to know, but now they're in a complete new circumstances. So, the show is not going to dramatically change to the point that you're not going to recognize it, but it does keep it interesting when, they keep the ideas and the storylines fresh.
I think it was the first episode. I love the sequence where you and Hero save the girl with the bow in her hair in Japan. When he stops time and
The first time we stopped time, yeah.
yes, and it was just a marvelous the way it was all edited, the music. I love the music in that sequence. How long did that take? And what did you think when you saw the finished product?
That scene, it was a big day. It was a big day on Tokyo Street, and again, we did it in LA, in Little Tokyo. So they did such a good job of putting up, all the awnings, all the little things you don't notice unless you literally freeze frame and just look at everything. Everything from the set design to the props, and you know what I mean. They have to pay a lot of attention, and even. He's talking about the scene where the bus is coming towards the girl. We stop it. He freezes time, and there are just these toys that are from like back in the era. That if you know pop culture, if you know those things, you were like totally you could recognize. So, but stopping time, which we've had to do a lot of in our storyline, is a very interesting concept in our show because it's a lot of combination of high tech and low tech, and we have these giant green and blue screens and these things that sort of holds the actors in certain position where the girl had to be jump roping and her hair had to be held still and So there's a lot of that going on, and stunts people hanging on a harness, and you have to take out the lines so that it doesn't show. And then you add me, and me as an actor just literally have to freeze for 10 seconds or more. And there have been times where Heroes Frozen Time and my eyes were open. And the camera a lot of times usually like to start on me and then sort of goes on and shows you, the setting of the scene. So, holding your eyes open for 7-8 seconds sounds easy, but it's actually a lot harder when you try it, and especially when you have to. Your body sort of rebels when you know you have to do it. It's like that's the time when your nose like has a little itch and whatever. So, and I've had like tears just come like in the middle of a take just from opening my eyes wide open. So, so it's a lot of that. So it is fun, but it takes a lot of time to set it together. And I mean, when you put it together, yeah, it's what sequence of 5-6 seconds, but it's worth it. I mean, come on, that's part of the magic of the show,
Yeah.
So.
Did Alan Arkish choose that music? Because I know he has a real thing about music.
The two ladies who are in charge of our music, Wendy and Lisa, they do all the original scores in the music, and they like to sort of place different music for different storylines. So if you really just one day replay an episode and not looked at the image at all and just listen to the music, or just kind of take a peek where it's going, you'll notice that different themes are sort of happening on different storylines when the Petrilli family's on. And with our storyline, there's this like, there's this recognizable music that they've placed strategically. It's sort of, I don't know, it makes things very, it feels like we're in a comic book, you know what I mean? And those are the little unspoken elements that they use to really create that entire vibe.
Right. That's, I'm glad you brought up the thing about the freezing your body, because that was the other thing I was going to say. It is so funny because this show is so effects rich and so well done, and you don't even crave a bigger screen. It's just fine right there. But a lot of it is just freeze, and they mean freeze, literally, stand still, and then someone else will come in. Like all the changes with, oh gosh, I'm forgetting her name, but she used to be Zach Levi's girlfriend. I forgot her name. But with the dark hair, very
Missy
pretty.
Peregrine?
All the things with her and Ashley, it was just stand still, and then somebody else comes in. As regular as possible, and you just have to do a really good job of it. You'd imagine that it was all about a computer and all just done for you, but a lot of it, they just rely on the actors, and that kind of stuff. Keeping your eyes open is a form of torture, by the way. I mean, it's really hard. Did they get the time-stopping ability from that wonderful Twilight Zone episode, do you know?
I don't know. I mean, Tim would, be the person to answer where the origins of a lot of these powers come from. But I'm sure, if you've been a fan of comic books and graphic novels and the story, there's so many origins that you could sort of draw from that goes all the way back to Greek mythology. So,
that's so cool.
Hero has this really childlike feeling to him. Is that pretty true to Masi?
I don't know. I mean, that's a deeper question, I think. But you are right that with Ando and Hero, there's a sort of, I guess, like you said, sort of this fresh, refreshing naivete that, even though these guys are in their 20s and working at an office who escaped, there's this childlike wonder that everything they discover is sort of like awe and fun, and so that's why that keeps it fun. And if you saw this past week's episode, Hero has reverted back to 10. So now I got to save the world and babysit. So the plate is kind of getting full here. But I thought that was a really fun sort of turn of events.
Great thing to do. You probably know him too well, so it's. I can just tell you our first impression, because we met him on set and then saw him at a film festival in Santa Barbara, and it was toward the beginning, and I think he may have been just a little bit in shock and overwhelmed with what was happening in his life, but he was shy and very serious. So you expected it to be Hero, and but you didn't get that at all. You got very kind of reserved, a little guarded, and
He's definitely more introverted than the character. And I think that's what's interesting is when you meet a lot of the actors and in person. I think that's why acting is fascinating because, for example, Christine Rose plays Angela Petrelli, and she sometimes plays it so well. And she's like the sweetest lady in real life. But she's so funny because she'll do a scene and she'll say stuff like, I will destroy you. And then she'll come and then they'll be like cut and then like, oh my God, was that okay? Like I think I could totally do better. You know what I mean? Like she just, we're like, who are you? It's like, so
Yeah.
you're so different. And you know, and I think it's fun.
Yeah. Their storyline, you're right. It's funny you said that because I'm loving that also. And we've worked with Robert for years, and I've cast him and stuff, and it's partly them being so weighted in terms of being veterans, but also it's that, you know, she can be so cold to her kids, but then not about them. And it's that really relatable, for me as a mom of grown kids, that really relatable thing of where she's kind of like, boy, I hope this isn't true. And then when she finds out it is, just that kill instinct mom thing, that it just, you feel like you're etching away at those characters a little at a time, and you're seeing more and more and more stuff. I mean, because really it seemed like they were just kind of characters so you could identify who the parents were. And now so much has emerged. You know, is everything, like Eric keeps saying, you think there's a Bible to this show, but I don't think there is. I think they just come up with stuff.
You know, I think it's a combination of, we do have certain things of parameters that we want to create this world in,
Right.
but times are changing,
Yes,
and the
it's
show
true.
changes with the times,
Right.
and it's an organic process of there's always, and because world events change and happen all the time, and I think the show tries to keep things relevant, and a lot of times, you know, things that are happening now sort of makes it in there, so.
Yeah,
And it does make it interesting,
definitely.
yeah.
It does have, do you guys feel that way? It does have a relevance. It's interesting how you know, you feel like, and now there's such new things happening in the world, so that should be interesting on Heroes.
Yes.
We've seen several mentions into the future where either Ando was no longer alive or he was attacked with his best friend. Now, though we didn't get to see the attack that led up to that, we still saw the glimpses. Is there one path that you as an actor would like to see your character take?
Well, yeah, he'll be alive, first of all. But I think that's one of the themes of the show is that the whole idea of fate and destiny and the choices we make and how does that affect that, you know? And you know, I think the school of thought that you conceive is eventually up to you, but there's the idea of that things are not always set in stone. That if we don't give up and at least, you know, try to do what we can at the present moment, that things can change. So there is a message of hope, I think, that's part of the show. In terms of where the character's going, I think you'll be very surprised in sort of watching the next 4 episodes unfold, and especially with how the season is going to end this year, and then how it begins next year with Volume 4. So I don't want to give away too much, but you see some big changes happening with Ando, and I think it'll be for the better. So yeah.
That's cool.
Yes. Yeah.
Because you're doing a television series, and I also heard that you did a TV movie earlier this year.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, somewhere in Europe,
Yeah, in Bulgaria.
in Termination Shop. It's going to be on sometime either later this winter or next year. What's the difference between doing something like a series and doing something like a TV movie that's somewhere else completely?
Yeah, you're referring to the movie's called Termination Shock, and we were in Bulgaria filming it. It was my first time in Eastern Europe, and it is a sci-fi film, and it was very interesting. Well, let me tell you, first of all, Bulgaria, the culture there is very fascinating because they nod to say no, and they shake their head to say yes.
Right.
So you know how much fun we were already having on the first day, you know? Are you happy with your hair? No? Yes? No? What is it? It was, and they're starting to film more and more stuff out there because the country does have different sort of locales, and it's cheaper to make movies. But it was fun. It was fun, and it's got elements of all your sort of sci-fi classics that we all love, like everything from Star Wars to Total Recall, Fifth Element, and Aliens. So it is going to have a lot of sort of CGI and these creatures that we'll be fighting against and whatnot. And it's going to premiere next summer, I think, on the Sci-Fi Channel, because they're the one who produced it. And with sci-fi, it's a hit or miss. It could become a cult classic, or it could be completely hokey. So you just don't know how it's going to come out. But they're saying that it's looking good, so I'm kind of looking forward to it. Yeah. Yes.
If, let's just say that the powers were real, which power would you not want to have?
Which power would I not want to have? The powers are real. In season 1, there was a mechanic who was able to hear things like 1,000 times louder, and then she got off by Sylar. I don't know if you guys remember that episode. She was just on for an episode. I would not want that. I mean, first of all, I don't like going into a club and sitting in front of a speaker, because who likes that? But can you imagine? I mean,
Dog.
I mean, your girlfriend's like, I love you. Oh, stop it! You'd have to live in like separate houses.
Might not be so bad.
Honey, bring back the syrup. Ah! I don't know. Yeah, so no, I wouldn't want that power. Yes. No.
Do you know if they're gonna, like, the characters, how they replace Nikki and Jessica, the twins? And now are they gonna bring back her son and her cousin that was,
She's asking, so Nikki and Jessica apparently died, but now we have Tracy Strauss, who we found out was like a third sister. So they were sort of like this experiment that was being done by a doctor, and apparently there were triplets. And but I think the Nikki Jessica story is wrapped. But this, I mean, again, things could always change. But just from the limited knowledge that I have, and I think I'm not sure if characters from the storyline may come back, but I mean, you never know. We might see Micah as sort of an older, maybe in the future, or who knows. I mean, Monica's out there somewhere, right? So I mean, it's very possible, but maybe not for a while. We'll see. Yeah. Which power would I want? Yeah, but that's kind of like Peter's too much, It's like you might as well just be God. I don't know. Yeah. Super Speed's kind of fun. I like that new. She's a new character this season, and she's our nemesis. That's a pretty good one, Yeah, absolutely. I do like when they do the
Yeah. What power would you want? Yeah, it's a hard one, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is.
There was several hands. I'm sorry. Yes. Oh, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. We had a hand back there, and then yes. Wait, you said you found whose?
L.
Oh, L. You talk about when we had oh, I see. When we had the flashback episode. This season we had a future, so forward flash episode, sort of early on, and some people found it interesting. Some people found it confusing because it kind of happened relatively early in the season, and and they felt like it threw them off because they weren't sure which timeline it was on. So I think they sort of brought the show back and sort of try to focus on what's happening at the present. And I kind of like that. Because before you start, you start jumping around in time too much, and all of a sudden the concept of reality is gone. So I don't think you ever want to overdo that element. The good thing about season 1 was that we had like one of each, and it wasn't just sort of randomly thrown in there. There was a reason for it in the story. That when me and Hiro went 5 years into the future, we saw a very different world, and things sort of got tied together a lot. And when we came back, and so we don't want to just keep doing that just because we can and we have the money or the special effects to do it. But I really like the future. I really like the flashback episode because I like the fact that it tied up certain things coming back to season 1, because we saw some of the things that led just to the moment, and then we saw some scenes that were actually filmed, that were the footages from season 1, of HRG doing all that and then getting into a taxi, and then it was that moment where he first met Mohinder and things like that. And in terms of unbelievability, that's like, no, I'm not gonna, I thought it was a good episode. Yeah.
Ruin the whole hating Siler thing, because now you kind of,
Feel
what
sorry
I mean?
for him?
He's no longer just this bad.
He became a softie,
Yeah.
softie Siler.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of like the mean Siler better. Kind of suits him, huh? Yeah. Yes.
Hiro and Ando are a great dramatic and almost comedic team at times. Maybe like Ralph Cramden and Ed Norton, Jade, Silent Bob. Just a great duo together. And they should never, ever split you up. They should keep you in the show for the complete run together, because you bring me, the two of you together bring me back to the show every week.
Oh, thank you.
How much of that is actually in those scripts, and how much of that are you bringing into it? Because I found that right from the beginning, when I was asking you before about that first episode,
Yeah.
Trees, it's really there. It's really strong. It's one of the greatest strengths of the show.
Oh, in terms of our chemistry, you mean, of the two characters?
Yeah, the personality, you're kind of like brothers in a way.
Yeah. Yeah. No. I totally see those guys as brothers, and it's been really interesting because it works, somehow. And in real life, we couldn't be more different. He's definitely more introverted, like you noticed, and we are the type of show where we don't have table reads, where it's sort of rehearsal kind of time. Everything you've seen on the show, 99.9%, it's just happened at the moment kind of thing. Because the first time we actually get to run through a scene is when camera's blocking it out. Now, of course, when actors get to the set, they might just kind of like, hey, like, let's run this a couple times or whatnot. But yeah, we've been compared to, they called us the new Martin and Lewis and Abbott and Costello. But I think when, by the time show's done, hopefully we'll leave our own legacy. And I don't know. Maybe that's part of the magic. You don't really know what the formula is. It just kind of works. Yeah. Yes.
Follow-up question to that. One of the things that I've noticed, just thinking about Ando and Hiro, I agree, are one of my favorite elements of the show too. But really, especially in first season, and to a certain extent in second season, Ando was really the sidekick. He's a really classic sidekick. He's always there for the hero, but he's really sort of the supporting guy. It seems like this year he's really playing more of a partner. Can you talk a little bit about that evolution of the character?
Yeah, that's been a cool, I guess, evolution because the first two seasons he definitely played the role of a facilitator, and I think this season they sort of organically decided to, put us on the same plane of sort, and you're right, it has become more of a partnership, and at times really fun role reversals, and I think that's part of the fun about these two characters, that one helps the other and vice versa. And there's been times where he's had to save my ass and I had to save his. And but this season especially, yeah, we've been getting to a lot of shenanigans, and I sort of had to knock the Haitian out, or so there's been this a fun plot of where we get into sort of a tight situation, and they've had Ando to sort of find a temporary solution, whether we're in the jail cell and we're trying to escape through the hatch, and he can't fit his. It's been fun. And I think you see more of that towards the end of this season and start of next. How these characters are starting to continually evolve, and there will be some sort of a fun role reversal. And it's kind of like Luke Skywalker and Han Solo, right? I mean, these guys they go on these sort of adventures a lot, but they're starting to develop their own sort of personalities and identities, and I think that will continue to happen. Oh, thank you. I saw some hands. Anyone? Yes. Who's the prankster on the set? I'm one of them, depending on what the mood is. You have to sort of pick and choose because we are working. Greg Grunberg, who plays Matt Parkman, he's a lot of the guys actually have really good sense of humor. Jack, HRG, you wouldn't expect that from HRG, but Jack's really funny. Like I said, Angela Pacelli, she's so sweet in real life. Robert is like the sweetest guy. First day he was on set, he gave me a letter opener, and he kind of does that with like all the ideas. It's like this tradition that he does. And Zach, who plays Sylar, really sweet guy. People freak out when they meet Zach because they're like, no, don't, do not raise your finger or whatever. Yeah, especially kids. They're terrified of Zach. It's funny, but yeah. So I think overall people are, pretty good sports.
There's a lot of humor and a lot of intelligence. Like, yes, you're one of the pranksters, and then also, I mean, seriously, Grunny and Jack, you can't believe that it's a drama. Because those two guys, and just the the humility also. You really don't. Some people are such fans of the show that they don't even want to know where it's shot. They don't even want to know the studio because they don't want the illusion broken. But when you're on that set, it's so unbelievably down to earth. It's really more like, I don't know, a nature hike or something. It does not have that vibe of that other thing at all. And I think in answer to the question about whether you guys created this thing or whether it's written, the good writers will start to write to the actual actors playing the roles. They'll create the roles in their head and then kind of turn it over. And then they start to get their inspiration from what they see happening in terms of the chemistry. Because you guys really, I think that you took it in that direction and they went with it, and then you pick up on what they do, and it's kind of like that.
You are so right about that. Yeah.
Yeah, which it's really great to see because that's kind of the sign of a really good writer. And those, I think, the shows that sustain an audience and stay on the air, that's largely the reason, don't you think? Yes. No, you.
Yeah, when she was asking if I knew what extent Ando was going to be part of the show. When the show first started, I really didn't know because I knew that he was going to be in the first 5, and then we realized, they're sort of on this journey together. But then to what extent? And then there have been a couple times in season 1 where, there was a moment in the bus stop where Hiro says, "Hey, it's getting too dangerous. You got to go back to Japan." And some people wonder, well, is that it then? And then Ando came back dressed as a security guard, when we're in Linderman's museum. So, and then even at the season finale, when it was going off against Sylar, he could have died there. So, Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it was a sort of an organic, result of what happened, if they had it in mind, but maybe it was a combination of both. I mean, I think they saw something working and they responded to that, and then the fans responded to that, and I guess it kind of, turned out well.
There's
So-
also, if I can add something to that, there's another kind of an inside look. In our industry, it's kind of like the committee commitment, and when you write a series and you have your series regulars, everyone gets to weigh in on the casting. It's not just the producers and directors, it becomes the studio and the network, and it's hard for everybody to agree. So if you have some classness and if you are seasoned, what you'll do is you'll put in your back pocket some characters that you're going to introduce as guests or to do a recurring role because they don't require network approval or anything. And you'll even have your favorite actors in mind for that. You'll kind of sprinkle those people in, and if you want to use them more and more to the point, that's what they did with Jack, actually. They had him as a guest for a year. It's not the same money. You don't have to approve the budget. Nothing about it. And you can flip them in, and some of the most magical casting has happened that way. I'm not sure. Did you go to network and test and everything?
I did go through network and test, but not as my character because they weren't
interesting.
auditioning my character yet.
Right.
So